Planet. So.
Welcome back to Open Line. We're talking about body cams. Body cams on Metro police officers. There is a plan in the works for that to happen. We're streaming this live on our Facebook page and also taking your calls. We have with us two people here from the mayor's office. Dodie Judkins says, I say for everyone's sake, body cameras are now a must. Jessica Brooks says, I'm curious as to how this works legally. For example, if I'm being filmed and I don't want to be filmed, what do they have to do? Can they still film me? Is essentially what she's asking there. What about that?
Yeah, so the policy specifically identifies privacy situations where the officer is required to deactivate their camera. And a lot of that's around domestic violence situations, when they're performing lethality assessments, around young people. We've even talked about houses of worship and places like that in some of the policy discussions. Other than that, the officer is really going to be required to activate anytime they're interacting with the public. And part of that is for the officer's protection, because our officers, our OPA office, they receive a lot of complaints on officers, but it gives the officers the opportunity to show what they're doing, if they're doing their job properly, and a majority of them have been proven to do that in the past just without video to show that. And so
all right, so
it really depends on what type of call or what type of situation that officer.
If an officer can turn it off when he walks into a school, then couldn't he also turn it off if there was something that he didn't want out there? In other words, should it not be up to somebody whose job is, after it's all loaded into the system, to say this is not public, this is public? Or is it going to be up to the officer to say, I'm now going to dismantle this or turn it off because this is a private situation?
Well, no. Once that footage is captured, it's a public record. And so that's why we really want to be very meticulous going through the policy discussion, because we want to identify, okay, when should that officer deactivate, because we don't want that to be subject to public record at some point. And the CAG, even yesterday's meeting, we had several people on the CAG bring this up, because there's some real concern around, we're going to catch footage that really should have been deactivated or should be privacy, that people are going to be able to request and get the footage, because it's not going to be any ongoing litigation, and it's just going to be subject to open records. And our legal department has really taken a long look at that. And we're going to continue to look at it, and the state is going to weigh in on this also. So the state has litigation to actually identify certain situations where the footage may not be subject to open records requests. And so that is footage that may be captured inside of a school with a young person. Even if that footage is captured, it may not be subject to open records requests just because it is capturing young people. And so we do think that there are going to be some of those concerns addressed at the state level with their legislation, but we also want to be mindful of that in our policy also.
It seems like a lot to put on the officer to ask him to turn it on or off based on certain situations.
Well, that's why some of the equipment offers a sort of a foolproof situation where, you know, if your blue lights come on, if you're opening a car door, if you're pulling your gun out of a holster, then it's getting into a situation where the camera automatically clicks on, and so it's really, you know, for most of the situations where the officer would be turning off the camera, it's when, you know, the officer is sort of in a private situation, or he's, you know, he or she is doing something that's not really related to the job at that time. So those are the type of situations where they probably, you know, want to turn them off. And a lot of this footage is captured automatically, but it's just depending on when you start to record it to be uploaded.
Is there some disastrous situation as far as that goes that's happened in another city? There's some thing that is clearly shouldn't have been out there, then gets out there, whether it's in a lawsuit or whatever, where these cameras harmed someone's right to privacy?
I haven't read anything, but I'm not going to say that there's not. But open records laws, they're different state to state. And so it really depends on the state and what those laws are for open record requests that may be.
Now, Jim, did you want to respond to that? No? Okay, Jim, who called in a few moments ago, he called back and he asked, when is there going to be a public vote on this? Talking about a lot of money. So his question is just that. What about that?
So there's not going to be a public referendum per se. As with most bond issues or capital spending, it'll go before the Metro Council, most likely in June, and they'll have hearings on the budget, the requests, and they'll get to talk directly to their council members, or whether through the public open hearing or just talking directly to their council members when it comes time for them to vote on the matter.
So it'll go before the council.
Yes.
It won't be like a public vote.
Yeah.
All right, we have 3 minutes left. I mean, in what you have heard in these meetings, really on both sides, but you're saying 95% support this. Really, the devil is in the details. Is that right? I mean, that's your message is it's going to happen.
Yes.
We just have to work out the parameters in which it's going to happen.
Yes, we want to do it thoughtfully. We want to do it right. We want to be intentional. But we also want this to have the impact and the outcome that we desired when we started down this road.
And what have you learned, from these meetings? I guess what in the final couple minutes we have here, what do you want people to take away?
I think what we've learned throughout this process is that there are a lot of complicated issues that you have to think about ahead of time, and there are going to be issues that come up along the way that are going to have to be addressed, and amendments to the policies to make sure that we're protecting the individuals, protecting our police officers, making sure that we're being open and transparent throughout the entire process. So it is something that it's complex. You have sides that are on the ACLU, the civil liberties sides. You have some of the police officers' concerns, and so finding that middle ground that tries to address all of those concerns while also having a robust policy that ensures that if there is a use of force situation or a complaint, that you have that evidence in there so that we have a better, clearer picture of what happened in that situation, both to protect the officer and to protect people's rights in the public.
Fascinating discussion. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap everything up. Take a break. Be back right after this.